These are the things that we believe in. First, that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. Second, that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Number three, that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable among us. And number four, that it is inappropriate to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. They came from you. They're your pillars. They're the things that you believe. Hello and welcome to the National Leadership Briefing. My name is Doug Sharpe and I will be your host for today. Well, so often on the National Leadership Briefing, our agendas are jammed so tight that as I open up every single briefing, I have to inform you that we have a lot to cover and that we are going to be immediately getting started. Well, of course, we're going to be getting started right away, as always. However, what I wanted to do this National Leadership Briefing is I wanted to address something that I have been seeing happen from the people that are joining us on the briefing for the first time. Now, that is, first and foremost, first of all, they're really excited after they leave the first briefing. We see that every single time when new people get started on the briefing and they discover that all across the nation, there are people who share their views and values who are standing up and speaking out in defense of the things that we believe in and share, like a common belief that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. We have a shared interest in seeing our right of belief and freedom of religion respected and defended. We want to see the laws and policies of our land provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially protecting the vulnerable. And of course, we believe that that burden of debt that is on the backs of our children must be lifted by our elected officials so that our children are not born as bond servants into a relationship with civil government that will keep them in bondage for the rest of their lives. So these are the things that people are exposed to for the very first time when they come on the National Leadership Briefing, and they leave fired up. And that is so good. We're excited about that. But what we have found is that when you are excited and you want to charge out into the society, culture, politics, and government, into these realms and advance the principles that underlie the four pillars, that sometimes you're going to run into resistance right away. And like, remember, we were talking about, you run into the gatekeepers out there that are keeping you or restricting you from accessing certain parts of society or parts of the political process. You might run into someone who's a bully. We talked about that, is the fact that there are bullies on the road ahead. But what's happening is that people are leaving here excited, and they have not yet gathered enough in the way of training or complete enough understanding as to who they are and who we are collectively, so they can withstand some of the blows they are encountering out there. So we're seeing people get excited, going out there, taking action, and then meeting resistance or running into confrontation, and then they get discouraged and they get dejected, and then sometimes they even quit and we lose them. And we just do not want to be losing someone who's excited on that road. A good example is, I was reading on a Facebook post the other day where a lady had gotten so excited about our EDA strategy, the idea that we were going to be joining the Electoral District Association boards across the nation. And so she went out and she wanted to join the executive on one of those boards, and ran into some resistance, ran into some gatekeepers, which we had taught people to expect. They're out there, believe me. They not all the doors are going to be open to us. But got discouraged and ended up making some decisions that I think down the road she's probably going to regret making, as far as stopping to take action or stopping to work in a certain direction. So the whole idea of today's briefing, in the beginning anyway, is that we're going to slow it down a bit, and we're going to build up a little bit more understanding of the four pillars and where they came from. Now, this is going to be a perfect National Leadership Briefing. If you are seeing this and you're watching the briefing with us today, you're going to get a video of it later. Perhaps that's what you're watching. You're watching the video now after the briefing. Whatever it is that you receive that you can share, this would be a perfect briefing for you to share with other people, because I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive into the four pillars to kick us off here today, so that we develop a little greater understanding as to who we are, what we believe in, and why we're here.
And then we're going to develop a little bit more confidence in us because we have a greater understanding, so that we have that greater confidence when we run into the resistance out there. Because we do not want you to forget that, for example, we're all in this together. You might run into a little resistance over here, and you might run into a little resistance over there, but together we are all still intact. We're all still together. And as we take these little blows, it is our unity that is going to keep us strong and moving forward, advancing the 4 pillars. So this is what I want to do today. Is I wanted to first remind you, of course, of the 4 pillar story. Now, this is a story. I'm going to include this as a link in the post briefing notes. It is a story that starts out that says, in the fall of 2016. Now, you may have heard that story before, where in the fall of 2016, the first of a series of citizen surveys started to go out across the country. So this is, again, where the 4 pillars came from. This is the story of the surveys where we asked the people that we serve in our organization, what is important to you? What is important to you and your family and in your community and in your church? What is it that you want to see us support? And what do you want to see us oppose in the way of policies and laws? And we went through a whole list, and we got so much feedback from the people that we serve. Like, we heard from people on issues like human trafficking, prostitution, pornography, euthanasia laws were big back in the fall of 2016. That was being discussed in a big way. Marijuana legislation was being discussed, abortion policy, polyamorous relationships, education, freedom of religion, child protection, gender ideology. All of this was being discussed. And when we got that feedback back, we listened and we kind of lined it all up and went, wait a second here, we're seeing some themes, some common themes between all of these issues, and some perspectives on how people are looking at these different issues. And that's where the 4 pillars came from. First and foremost, we saw, what was the greatest thing that we saw in all the responses? It was that parents really, really wanted the right to raise their children the way they wanted. Now, you could easily just say, well, that's such a simple thing, Doug, but to have it so simply expressed sometimes hides the power of that single statement. This is a big challenge for us here in Canada. As parents and grandparents watching their children raise their children, they're seeing this challenge unfold. And that is that the family unit, this is the authority of the family, is being challenged by civil government, and civil government is stepping into the government of the family and starting to make decisions about how children are to be raised. Now, obviously, there are child protection laws in place. So, we're talking about, I think there's a need to have child protection laws, but we're talking about the authority of parents to decide how to raise their children. This is being challenged by civil government right now. So when we say to ourselves, is that important to us? Is this something that I want to align myself with on the national leadership briefing? Is this something I want to work alongside other parents across the nation to advance the principle of parental authority, to work to protect and preserve that authority in society, culture, politics, and government? When you make that decision, say, you know what that is, that's me, I'm aligned with that perspective. Then when you go out and you get challenged on it, when you try to join a parental advisory board, or school board trustee elections come up where these kinds of issues are being challenged, you can have the confidence in knowing that we are committed to protecting and preserving the authority of parents to raise their children the way they want. Do not be discouraged if you run into resistance in that area, because it's out there. There are a lot of people out there that believe that the way you raise your children, to believe that there is a God creator in heaven, and that they challenge even the simplest things that are being presented in school. I mean, there are literally people out there that do not want you to be teaching your children those bigoted, very narrow-minded things that you think as a parent. And that's their prerogative to do so, but it is your authority as a parent to decide how your children are raised, which is what we are defending here, what we are working to preserve. So this is the first pillar. Now, when you read this 4-pillar story, again, I want understood here is that This came from the church. This is not somebody that is coming out here. And when I say the church, I'm talking about not just the structure of the church. I'm talking about the people in the pews in the churches that we serve. It is the citizenry of the faith communities of Canada that have told us that these are the things that are important to them. So please do not think for a second that these are conjured up or created things that are just very, very vague ideas. These are very specific principles that a major number of Canadians from across the country can believe in and actually are aligned with. So I'm encouraging you to really get to know this story about where these came from and what it means when we talk about advancing the principles that underlie or undergird the four pillars into the realms of society, culture, politics, and government. We are out there actively promoting the authority of parents to raise their children the way they want. We are actively promoting to our elected representatives and to any candidate that presents themselves to us our requirement that they, as elected representatives, respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. These aren't just words. I am going to require you as a candidate, if you want to earn my support, if you want me to commit to vote for you on election day, I'm going to need you to commit to respecting and fighting in defense of my right of belief and freedom of religion when you are in office. And we're seeing this whole thing play out right now as to some of the challenges we have, for example, on that second pillar of right of belief and freedom of religion. We're seeing it play out right now in the House of Commons, where our elected representatives do not understand that about us. They do not understand that it is a basic, very minimum requirement of their job description from our perspective that when we are under attack and our right of belief and freedom of religion is under siege, they need to stand up and defend it. So this is what we're trying to educate the people and those elected candidate or the elected officials that are in office and the candidates. We're in this process, and there's going to be some bumps along the road. There's going to be some meetings that you're going to have with elected representatives where they're going to kind of scratch their head and go, "I've never heard anybody talking like this before," because quite frankly, this is all pretty new. This is all pretty new. This whole idea of us unifying around principles and not candidates or citizens, we're actually rallying around these principles and advancing them, as opposed to us saying, okay, we're going to pick one person that we hope has most of the things we believe and put them into office. No, we're talking about the things we believe in, and we're sharing it with everybody. And we want people to gather, we're trying to gather support around these ideas by sharing them in a positive way. That's one of the things that we do on the National Leadership Briefing is I've always got a smile on my face because I have a great time doing what I'm doing. But you know what? I run into resistance out there all the time. I get the finger in the chest going, you've got no right to stand up and share this in front of me. I've got this and that. I don't mind. Hey, come on, confront me all day long, because the bottom line is that I'm standing with thousands of people across the nation right now who believe that parents should have the right to raise their children the way they want, that our right of belief and freedom of religion is a non-negotiable, and I expect you as a registered or as an elected official to stand up and defend it. I expect you to pass laws that provide for the safety and security of the citizens and not remove safeguards like you just did in the House of Commons by passing those amendments on the euthanasia laws here in Canada. And I certainly expect you that if you are an elected representative at any level of government, that you are actively working to lift that burden of debt off of the backs of our children. This is really important, that if our elected representatives know that passively sitting in the House of Commons right now, or any legislative house or any municipal government, if you are not an active participant with a plan that you are working to lift the burden of debt off the backs of my children and future generations, then you aren't doing your job. You're falling short. You're actually somebody who is actually proving to us that you are not capable of doing your job. So we're actually trying to explain this in a very kind-hearted, nice way. But the bottom line is that as we grow and as more of us catch on to this and more of us understand that we are collectively all saying the same thing and they're not listening, then we're going to have to get a little bit more, kind of not aggressive, but assertive. Let's call it assertive. We're going to get a little assertive and make sure we're still showing up. But again, when we hit the resistance, when we run into the bullies, when we run into the gatekeepers, I just want to encourage you all here today. This is not just a great story. This is a great cause. This is a great mission. The things that we are doing is for the betterment of all of our society. So if we take a couple blows along the way, if we lose a couple of battles in the along the way, that's going to happen, and it's going to be so worth it. So please stick around, because we need your voice added to ours, and we want to add our voice to yours, but we need you to stay on the pitch. We can't have you leaving. And I know it gets discouraging sometimes, but I just encourage you. This is a great reason to be in even listening to this for 1 hour a month. It's a fantastic cause. So stick around. Okay. So this is what I wanted to just say today is I want to encourage you, dig deeper. If you feel like you're getting close to getting cut from the herd on the National Leadership Briefing, if you're starting to feel that discouragement, then what I encourage you to do is press in and get back into the 4-pillar story and remind yourself about why we're doing what we're doing. And that will help you to stay engaged long enough to grab that next piece of information or that next thing that we're working on. Because I tell you, every single National Leadership Briefing, I could line up all of the things that we're doing. I could line up every single thing that we're doing, and it would take us a 5-hour National Leadership Briefing to tell you all the exciting things that are going on right now across Canada. So that's, we only have an hour. We only have an hour, so we got to kind of decide how we spend our time. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now, but I'm attaching this 4-pillar story, and that's a good lifeline for you to grab a hold of if you start getting discouraged. Thanks so much for letting me share that. Now, I am going to tell you about some more things that we're talking about today, because this is an important day. We have one of the things that we're working on is something called the Electoral District Association strategy, and I mentioned it before that we had somebody who was actually kind of getting a little discouraged because they ran into some resistance. Well, we're going to give you a better piece of equipment to hold on to. We're going to actually train you to a higher level so that confidence from understanding that you get can now be applied to executing the strategy with good information. And I'm bringing the person on that is going to share that information with you today and talk about the EDA strategy and some tools that you're going to be able to use on the way forward to get yourself on those Electoral District Association boards and have your finger on the pulse of what's happening in your local elected representatives' offices. So this is really a good place to be. We're also going to do a citizen spotlight segment, which will be a great encouragement for you, because there's citizens all around us that grab a hold of these ideas and then they go, wait a second, wait, I think I can make a difference in this area, or maybe I'm called to be over here. And I met somebody who had that happen. They had a situation where they saw a need. They felt this tug on their heart to spend some time and focus on filling that need. And they're doing just a wonderful things on the front line. We're talking on the street frontline ministries, touching people's lives. And I want to share that person with you in the Citizen Spotlight segment. And then what I want to do is I want to come back and we're going to talk a little bit in the boardroom today. We're going to talk a little bit more on my desk about kind of a broader conversation on some of the things that I'm seeing going to be happening on the road ahead. Now, I try not to get too much into speculation and too much into what might be happening on the road ahead, because I think that we've really got to deal with, so we got to really dial in on focus on actionable items here. We always like to talk about the things that we are working on immediately, the challenges, and bring the opportunities and challenges together, and then equip you right away so that you can see the solution for all of that, so we stay encouraged. But there are some things happening on the road ahead that are starting to kind of creep up that I'm kind of going, wait a second, I think we need to start developing some understanding as to some of these possible outcomes that we need to be prepared for. And we certainly don't want to be like shocked and surprised when things happen on the horizon, especially if we can see them coming. So I'm going to share some of those with you today, but I want to just put a little note on the side of that here. You need to be encouraged and remember that knowing something might happen doesn't mean it's going to happen, but preparing in case it does happen, that's smart. So that's what we're going to start talking about today, broader conversations. And we're going to, as part of that conversation, I told you we were going to talk to you today about something that I see as a possibility that we need to be mindful of. And that is what I'm terming as political extinction. What happens if our group or the people that believe in the same things we do actually become extinct as part of the political processes here in Canada? What does that look like? What is the anatomy of our potential or possible political extinction here in Canada, where we aren't even going to be able to participate possibly in the processes of that establish our governments in the future? So you're going to want to stick around for that as well. And you know what? I'm just looking forward to spending some time with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for letting me share the 4 pillars again. And I look forward to this next bit of time with you, because we are going to knock off some good work and we're going to move the ball downfield. Thanks so much. Watch this short video and then we'll come here and I'm going to get right into it. And we're going to introduce you to some really great people that are doing some big things. Talk to you soon.
It's time to wake up from our slumber
and stand together, united as one. One family, one body, one church.
We will not walk past the vulnerable.
Say nothing, do nothing, and turn a blind eye.
We are citizens of a great nation.
We are good Samaritans to our neighbors. You are not alone.
We are the largest unified voice in Canada. So we stand united. This is our rally cry. We are Christ to our nation. This is our battle cry. He shall have dominion from sea to sea and from the river unto the ends of the earth. Righteousness will reign. Justice will prevail. We are united.
Well, one of the best things about my job is that I've had an opportunity over these past few years to forge some amazing relationships with some incredibly competent people who are activists out there advancing our views and values in the political and government sphere. One of those individuals is Scott Hayward of Right Now. He and Alyssa of the organization that they lead have done a fantastic job of not only advancing the cause of pro-life views in Canada, but also equipping people to take on and execute tasks that can advance these. So we have a great opportunity today. I want to introduce you again to Scott Hayward, because he is going to share with us a brand new tool that he has produced for helping us to establish ourselves on electoral district association boards. That's the local boards that work locally to advance the causes that we believe in. And we need those relationships to be strong. So let's bring on Scott to introduce this tool to us now. Okay, well, thanks so much, Scott. Appreciate your time today and for spending time with us and updating us on what you're doing and some of the key tools that you've just released it right now. Good to have you with us.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, well, we've talked a lot about in the past about the importance of the Electoral District Association. If anybody wants to get sort of back into why we need to be there and why it's important that that part of the political process is one that we need to be aware of, please refer to the history of the National Leadership Briefing. But today, Scott, you launched this incredible piece of work, the EDA guide from Right Now. Thank you so much for your awesome professionalism on that. Scott, tell us about this. What do we need to know about this document that you've just released?
Well, Doug, I appreciate, first off, the kind words and of the document that we were able to put together. It really was a team effort. I just want everyone to know that. The content in that document on how to get on your EDA, why you should be on your EDA, what to do once you're on your EDA, that's from not just Right Now, but from a great group of people, including your organization and you yourself as well, Doug. So I just want people to know that results like this happen when the pro-life movement comes together, when people who share our views and values come together. So I just want that to be first and foremost there, and we're happy to share it with everyone. So like you mentioned in the past, and you and I have discussed this in the past as well on the National Leadership Briefing about the importance of being on your Electoral District Association Board of Directors, what that means and what that entails. But now let's talk about, once you're actually convinced that this is something that I need to do, this is something as someone who holds these views and values, that I need to be part of the political process. How do I do that? What does that entail? And that's what this document talks about. So to delve into it a little bit, for every Electoral District Association Board of Directors, at every annual general meeting, which happens once a year, typically in the autumn, not necessarily always, but typically in the autumn, that's when they elect their board of directors, and they usually sit for a 1-year term. Some board of directors have 2-year terms, and that's your opportunity. That's your best opportunity to get onto the board of directors. So one of the ways to make yourself very electable to get onto the board of directors, of course, is to volunteer. If there is a fundraising event, perhaps some door knocking, like a phone-a-thon or something like that, take those opportunities to participate within your EDA already. That makes you more electable to people who might not necessarily share your views and values, but they like your work ethic, and they know that once you're going to be on the board, that you're going to be a good team player on your board while holding your principles and your views and your values. So that's probably the first thing. The second thing is, if this is something that you feel that you should do, and I hope that everyone who's watching this does feel compelled to be a part of their EDA board of directors, use this summer as an opportunity to get ready for these AGMs. And so the best thing that we can do as a pro-life movement for our organization, those who share our views and values, is contact your personal contacts within the riding. Think of family, think of your friends, think of fellow churchgoers if you're religious, perhaps some colleagues and co-workers who are, from our perspective, pro-life, who share your views and values, who have a good work ethic, you think have that time commitment that can be on the board. So most of these boards have about 30 people. So if you're able to put together a slate of 10 or 15 or 20 for the autumn or whenever the AGM is going to be, make sure that everyone on your slate, kind of understands and kind of fits that criteria, that they would be a good board member. And ask each one to come up with 20 different names of people who can purchase a membership to the party, who can then vote for not only that person, but for the whole slate come the AGM, whether it be, sometime after Labor Day or later. That way, you're going in with a slate of something like, 15 or 20 people. And if everyone did their job, you have 400 people in the background who are going to attend the AGM, vote for you, and then you're likely to be on. I don't know if people who are watching this, if they ever been to an EDA AGM before. I've been to many myself. And typically what you find is the 20 or 30 existing board members and maybe a few other people attending, and of course they're voting for themselves to go on the board. If you come in with, a couple hundred people, there's almost no way that you're not going to be on the board. So let's use this summer as an opportunity. There's some examples in that guide of kind of what to do going forward to get ready for these.
Yeah, and about this guide, I just have to tell you that this is why I'm so excited about the work that you guys do, is because for many people out there, I mean, you and I, we've been around politics for a long time, and that's so this is familiar to us. But for many people out there, the idea of actually engaging in a process like this, where I'm going to actually put my name forward to get elected for something, this is something that kind of people shrink back from it typically, but you show just how friendly a process it can be. Like, it really is something that is actually potentially a lot of fun. If you put a bunch of people, like I say, like-minded people, friends of yours together, and you say, hey, let's go make a difference and let's contribute locally, let's engage locally in these political processes, and you kind of make it a friendly, fun team thing, and then you gather around friends that are willing to come and vote for you. I mean, really, this is a representation of how much fun it can be. It really is. And it answers a lot of questions for people that pop in their minds. Like, because I'll tell you, the one thing that I hear a lot is, Doug, I don't know anything about that. How could I possibly do that? Well, this guide tells you everything that you need to know about it. And of course, Scott, tell me about sort of like what over the summer, what's your plan for coming back to the National Leadership Briefing and kind of walking this road with people? So as the new questions come up, what are you willing to do to help them along?
That's a great question, Doug. And I think that the first step for people who are wanting to get involved in this is to contact us directly. Doug, perhaps you can leave our contact information, get a hold of myself and say, hey, Scott, I just watched the National Leadership Briefing. I think this is something I feel, compelled to move to do. How do I go about it? Will you contact me? We'll provide you with that guide. Like you said, Doug, you'll have that guide available. So that's the first thing to do, so that we can keep track and we can mentor you through this process, right? If you don't contact me, we can't mentor you. You right. Contact me, we'll be with you all the way through. So in the summer, we'll help you think of ideas of where to get other names for a slate. And then for each person who's part of your slate, ideas of where to put together names of people who can purchase memberships to the political party to support you and your slate come for the AGM going forward. And then once you get, hopefully, and I think it would work, you get elected to the board of directors. What does that mean? What does that entail? You know, I've never been part of a board of directors before. I've never been part of an EDA, never been on a committee or anything like that. You know, that's okay. It's going to be a learning process. And I'll tell you what, most, if not all, existing board members for EDAs will be happy to have you on board. That's not going to be the case for everyone, and I just want to be very upfront with that. But most will be happy, especially if you're offering some time to help, you know, with fundraisers, maybe with some door knocking, with phone-a-thons, with these COVID-19 restrictions. You know, if you and your slate who get elected to the board of directors make yourselves as, you know, kind of the #1 go-to people on the board, whether someone's pro-life or not, or whether they share your values or not on the board, they're going to appreciate you for your work ethic and for your dedication, and that's going to be the most important thing. So, you know, if you do get elected to these boards, just remember that you are representing you know, the pro-life movement. You're representing people who share your views and values, and you want to be someone who's easy to work with. You want to be someone who's friendly. That's not to say that you set aside your principles or anything like that. There are going to be times on the board where there's going to be some very perhaps interesting or difficult discussions, especially as you get closer to convention and you talk about policies. But in the meantime, you know, if you go on the board in autumn and come, you know, a year and a half from now, we're discussing policies at the board level, and you've already developed those relationships and hopefully friendships of people who don't necessarily share your values. When you make your pitch at the right time, what are the things that we share that are important to us is going to go a lot further. So happy to come back in July to discuss, you know, where we're at, and even just individually with people. Like, feel free to contact me. You have some questions, you're struggling with something, you find something that works that we can share with other people. Please be in constant communication with myself, with Doug, for example. And I think we're going to find a lot of success going forward here.
That's fantastic, Scott. So what I'll do is I will do that. I'll include the guide in the post-briefing notes today. I'll make sure that I identify page 5, because everything you just described is on page 5 about forming that slate. I'll kind of highlight that. I'm going to highlight your contact information for right now and make sure that people know how to get in touch with you. And I'm going to take you up on your offer to come back in July and continue to work with us throughout the summer as we prepare to get active at the local level with these electoral district association boards, which are such an important part of these political processes here in Canada. Thanks so much, Scott, for your time today. I appreciate you taking it, and we look forward to seeing you again in July.
Thanks, Doug.
So again, everyone, make sure you check the post-briefing notes today, where you will find the download for the EDA guide that was produced by Right Now. And be sure to go to page 5, because on page 5 of the guide is where you'll find those step-by-step instructions that Scott gave you as to what you can be doing right now to be connecting up with their organization and starting to work towards that all-important annual general meeting of the association boards. Now, that's likely going to happen in the fall, but let's not waste the summer. Let's stay active throughout the summer and have some fun with it. Remember, it's a good time. We're not suggesting that you're stepping out on a political battlefield. You are literally going to have a great time doing it. So don't forget to get started right away and walk with Scott, because he'll make sure it stays fun. Now, and the next person I want to introduce you to is someone who I had an opportunity to spend some time with online earlier on this week. So what we did was we recorded the Citizen Spotlight segment with Christie Polson. And the reason why I wanted to share Christie with you is because she is doing some amazing things on the ground, motivated with the right heart, meeting the need of people around her, and she's doing a fantastic job. And I just wanted to shine a light on her work, and so that you would know who she is moving forward. I hope you enjoy her as much as I did. Here she is. Well, thank you so much, Christie, for joining us today on the National Leadership Briefing. I am excited to have you here, and I appreciate your time.
Doug, I'm so excited to be here. I actually feel nervous and just really honored to be here.
Well, we're sure glad you're here, and I can't wait to share you with everyone that we serve here. So, Christie, why don't we start with, you've got a pretty exciting story and what's your ministry, what you're doing right now. We're going to get to that, but tell me first how it started. How did this begin, this work that you're doing?
Yeah, for me, it was about 7 years ago. I was on good old Facebook and came across a documentary that was done in Moldova. And so a country way over there I've never heard of, never been there. And it was about sex trafficking of children. And that video imprinted something in my heart that I couldn't shake. Every time I thought of the children and the little girls being raped and hurt, I would weep like a deep, deep weeping. And so in that, I'm like, God, what do I do with this? Because I didn't have an understanding. Before that, I didn't even know that it happened. I didn't know human trafficking, human sex trafficking even was a thing. It's real.
And so this heaviness on your heart, and then all of a sudden, what did you have an epiphany? Did you see some additional information that sort of sparked you into action? Because here on the National Leadership Briefing, I'm always intrigued by those pivotal moments in time where people take something that is imprinted on their hearts, and then they translate that into mobilizing themselves and moving forward. Can you identify sort of the moment where you actually began to take action?
Yes, the moment came when I was on a mission trip in the Middle East. We were, my daughters and I got to sit with some ISIS survivors. And so this was my first encounter, a face-to-face with a woman that had been bought and sold and owned by multiple men, raped. They were forced to watch their daughters be raped, like just the most brutality, the most brutal stories I have ever heard. And they were weeping and sharing these stories with me. And it was heartbreaking. And so I've been to the Middle East multiple times now, but it was in 2020, last year. I returned home and I just heard, Christie, I want you to reach out to the sex victims of Alberta. And I'm like, what? I'm like, Alberta? And so I started. I started I hosted a human trafficking intervention course, and 20 people came from the community. So we had pastors and business leaders, we had a policeman and community leaders that came to this. And from that course, our outreach team was born. So I just put it out there. I'm going to start reaching out to these women that are being victimized in this way. I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to do it. And I know that the Lord wants me to love them. That's all I need.
Hearing that message clearly, being obedient to the Lord when you feel like that's something that he wants you to do. Now tell us some details as to what exactly are you doing, like practically actually doing out there, because I'm excited about, you've told me this before, but I want to share these details because I believe that this is frontline, impactful ministry, and you're changing people's lives. So please share.
Yeah, so our team, I've got a team of 6 women. So we meet together, and what we do practically is we reach out. The first way is we go into the strip clubs. So we actually physically go in, 2 of us at a time, and we just talk with the girls. We take them a gift bag. It's $50 worth of beauty products. So every woman loves a gift bag. So that's an icebreaker usually. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes the girls, they cannot receive a gift. And other times it just takes them a little while to receive it. They want to know what strings are attached to it or what I want, all sorts of things because they don't trust. But the gift opens up, walls drop in the girls, and they just talk, and we just love on them in the few moments that we have with them. So that's the strip clubs. We do the same thing in massage parlors. And then the third way is we reach out online. So we go through, this was my first time being on crappy sex ads. I haven't even really ever seen pornography or anything in my life. So it was actually kind of hard at first to go on these websites. But now all I see is that girl, that woman on there that needs our love. And so we reach out to the girls via text. We just text them responding to their ad and offer to meet up with them and to give them a gift bag. And so we text back and forth, and every outreach that we have done, we have met with girls. Like, we'll maybe send out 10 texts and get one girl willing to meet, and we just go meet her and talk with her, love on her, speak life over her. I believe in the prophetic gifts, so we prophesy, over these women, their destiny, without being preachy, without sounding like a wingnut kind of Bible thumper type. And so it's just been a powerful, powerful time meeting with these girls.
Well, I can see just in the short time that I've known you, your heart is just so obvious and evident when you talk about this, that I am absolutely certain that the women that you connect with must see that it is through a lens of love and not judgment or manipulation or anything, that they must receive you as well as they can in the circumstances that they are. And I'm so glad you're doing this. Can I ask you, obviously, and we've touched on this before, I know you and we've talked about this. This is something that you've learned to do, and you've obviously needed to develop some skills and awarenesses, because you're going into places where it's actually not always entirely safe. So I'm sure that you have protocols and things that you adhere to. What kind of maybe this is what I should say right now. Before anybody goes out and tries to do that or copy what Christie's doing, can I encourage everyone first off to talk to you first before you go do this on your own, because this is potentially dangerous, right? What you're doing.
Yes, it is, but I don't want people to be scared, but you do need to get trained.
Right. And can you tell us a little bit about some of those things that you do for people in the way of training?
Okay, so what we're offering, what I'll say first is I have learned from Exodus Cry. So exoduscry.com, I think, is their website. So their outreach lady, Helen, she's a good friend of mine. She has personally trained me and our team and trained us to teach the intervention course. And so I am so thankful for her, because she has 12 years experience working in this field, working with broken women, working, learning how to speak their language. So I don't have to make her mistakes. She's made lots of mistakes. And so she's taught me all her mistakes. Christie, you don't have to do this. We've learned that. So I can start where she's at. And so anybody listening to this that has a heart for it, you can start where I'm at. And I'm not saying I know a ton, but we do know some stuff. And it is a dangerous, I'll just say, I mean, this is a big business, In Canada. The pimps are making $200,000 to $300,000 per woman that they're trafficking. So if I'm coming in and disrupting their business, you can understand how that would make them feel.
Yeah, potentially quite dangerous for you. I can see that for sure. But I appreciate that you don't walk in fear as well, because you're informed. It sounds like you've clearly prepared yourself to mitigate the risks out there.
Yeah, but as a team, we are willing to, I want to replicate what I'm doing, like with our outreach team, in every major city. Start in Alberta, but we can go across Canada. I will come and share with any church or any community person that is wanting to, that has a heart to reach out to the brokenhearted, and let's work together and learn from each other. There's survivors, we can learn from them. There's law enforcement we can learn from. And so let's do that.
Let's do that. And so you've got me, you and me, we're both in. So anybody else that's on the National Leadership Briefing, I just want to encourage you to do one thing for me. Christie, if you would you provide a one-pager with information, not only on your ministry, but how people can get in touch with you, not only to connect with you for more information themselves, but could you also do me a favor and include in your one-pager information about how they can donate resources like finances. Obviously, there's expenses for your ministry. And if somebody had the heart to actually help support you financially, would you include that in your information as well?
For sure. That would be
Excellent. Excellent. So everybody who's on the National Leadership Briefing today, look to the post briefing notes today, because there is going to be a one-pager from Christie. And thank you so much for joining us today and giving me a chance to introduce you to everybody. I am so excited about your ministry and the work that you're doing out there and what we can do if we duplicate this all across the nation.
Thanks so much, Doug.
Appreciate your time. Well, I'm sure now you can see why I was so excited to share Christie and her ministry with you today. It's an absolute pleasure for me to do so. Please, again, check the post-briefing notes. We always want to make sure that you know how to get in touch with these people. If she's touched you or your heart and you have a heart for that kind of ministry as well, and you want to get more information, please make sure that you reach out to her. I know she'd appreciate hearing from you. Okay, watch this quick video, and then we'll come back here and hit the home stretch. Okay, we're back and we're on the home stretch here. Let's just spend a little bit of time here on the desk before we leave today. Now, before I close with these comments about the items behind me on the board, I want to stress a couple of things. First off, I'm going to be emphasizing here before I start that I'm sharing with you my opinion. And my opinion is formed after years of the experiences that I've had. And it's brought me to this moment in time to believe the things that I believe about where we're at and what the future looks like it could contain. So this is an opinion based on my experience. Now, I don't talk a lot about me on the National Leadership Briefing because I believe it's all about you and it's all about how I can help you. But I want to backstop your perspective of what it is that my opinion is. I mean, I have an opinion that is open to change. By the way, any one of you or anybody can still come and say, hey, Doug, and give me a little bit extra information on this or that and change my opinion. So it's malleable. I'm happy to have conversations about these things. But where I'm at right now is a place of a culmination of experiences that include, I volunteered in every election since 2001. I've been on 10 electoral district association boards. I've served as a member of the executive committees on 8 of those boards. Over the years, I was elected and served as Preston Manning's, Stockwell Days, and Stephen Harper's riding as executive president. So I've had that executive position of president. I was elected to serve on the national board of directors of a major political party. That's the National Council, and worked on a special committee to help cobble together policy books from 2 political parties to form what is now the Conservative Party of Canada. I've been a campaign manager. I have gone to every policy convention. I've led delegations at those policy conventions. I've been around in the political world for many years. I've been a president of a citizen action organization, and I have also participated actively in conversations about policy and politics and governance for a lot of years, like 20 years. So I'm speaking to you from that perspective, knowing that at any time, any of you can change my mind on some of these things, but I think it's worthy just to have you hear my view on this and then take it from there, right? So this is what I think we're dealing with here on the immediate road ahead. First of all, we have to recognize that there is a fine art being established by those who do not share our views and values, a fine art of weaponizing legislation. Now, we talked about this, I said I was going to talk about this specifically with reference to Bill C-6, when I saw the federal Liberal government start to openly muse about the idea of leaving the federal Bill C-6, that's the conversion therapy bill, intentionally not passing it into law now so that it can be utilized during the election cycle as an election platform plank. Well, that to me is the most overt expression of the weaponization of legislation that I have seen. Now, I've always believed, I'm going to tell you this again, this is my opinion, but I've always believed that this specific federal Liberal government, led by Justin Trudeau, our prime minister, is a government that loves to use the House of Commons as a foundry to forge political weapons. I believe that that is one of the things that they have always enjoyed doing, and they've done it over and over and over again, trying to drive wedge issues with pieces of legislation. But when you intentionally withhold the passing of a piece of legislation in the House of Commons so that you cobbled together there in your foundry, you have then you're then going to go and use it in the streets during an election. I think that is now time for us to say, hey, time out, that's a foul. Like, okay, we're calling you out on it. So we need to actually call them out and say, look, you use the House of Commons for what it's intended to be, and that is passing laws and enacting policies that are for the betterment of all of society, instead of spending your time forging these weapons to divide us, which I believe is what Bill C-6 is primarily going to be used for if it is used during the election. The second thing is that I really believe that they have become good at using identity politics versus unity politics. Here on the National Leadership Briefing, if you want to know the definition of unity, it's when I say, I believe that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. And I say, hey, come on, come all, come around, rally around this idea. If you believe what we believe, then we should all believe it together and see how big we are when we get together. Whereas identity politics, they take an issue and then they attach it to the identity of a group of individuals. And if you speak out or question the politics or the legislation, it is deemed to be an attack on the individuals that they have connected the legislation to. So this is what they've been doing, I believe, since the beginning. It's my opinion. They're very crafty, and I think we need to call them on that as well. The third thing is with respect to our own side of the political spectrum. You know that I am a nonpartisan. I'm here to advance the 4 pillars into all political parties, but the truth is that some parts of the political spectrum closer to the right are more open to have conversations that are of importance to us with regard to protecting the vulnerable and lifting the burden of debt. We tend to be more fiscally responsible, for example, on the right side of the political spectrum versus the left. So I'm just saying that as far as the current circumstances, as I look ahead on the road, I see trouble brewing when on the right side of the political spectrum, there seems to be a real march towards dividing our camp. If you take a look at, and again, I'm not speaking in a partisan way, I'm just pointing out the facts, is that I see division in the conservative end of the spectrum when I see parties forming outside of a single unified party around principles. So my call is not against other parties or any party at all. My call is for us to unify. I am calling for unity on the right side of the political spectrum. I'm calling to my friends who share our belief in the authority of parents and the right of belief in the 4 pillars. I'm calling on you and saying, why don't we all get together and set aside the things that we differ on and rally around the 4 pillars and form a credible governing alternative to the weaponization of legislation that's going on right now and the identity politics that's being played in our federal government right now. I'm suggesting we all get together and have a conversation about the road ahead. The fourth thing that I want to talk about here is the fantasy that we are experiencing in some people's minds about the mainstream media. I have had to come to a determination myself. Honestly, it is a reckoning. It is a moment of reckoning where I can no longer pretend that the mainstream media is nonpartisan. I cannot look at it, engage in it. I can't consider anything they present to me at any time without now knowing that I am looking at somebody speaking or listening to someone speaking that is a partisan, that is aligned with a leftist ideology, and they are unable to in any way deliver any message to me that is untainted from bias. So what I'm encouraging everyone out there to do is to just hear that that's my opinion. That's my opinion right now. And if you're still engaging, if you're still participating, if you're still watching mainstream media, if you're a consumer of the nightly news, if you're watching Cross Country Checkup, if Suhana Marchand or Evan Solomon is a hero to you, I'm encouraging you to, instead of sitting there passively and watching it and receiving the message, to actively dissect what they're saying, look at the images, listen to the message, and try to find it is. Just say, what is Doug Sharpe talking about? Challenge me on my perspective of this, because I do not see any of them right now in Canada, CTV, CBC, any of the mainstream media. I don't see anything in the way of a nonpartisan, disconnected, sort of a fifth estate kind of a journalistic view anymore. I really think there's agenda and bias being delivered regularly through those mediums. So that is my view on those issues. And I think that if we don't deal with all of these, then this is why I wrote this down in the beginning, was I said, I want you to know, I think that if these things aren't checked, that we're looking at here in Canada, the anatomy of our own political extinction. I really believe that if we don't do something about the weaponization of legislation in the House of Commons and the use of our legislation, our legislative house as a foundry for these weapons, if we don't get that in check, that will be a part of our political extinction. If we don't start leaning further to that unity side of politics and getting away from the division of political parties, I think that we're going to be, it's contributing to our own political extinction. And if we continue to live the fantasy that mainstream media is in some way a unbiased sort of third-party overseer accountability mechanism of government, if we keep thinking that, then I think we're going to be just wandering right into the end of our own ability to participate in these political processes to establish civil government. So this is my concern. And you want to know what my answer is? I think we should advance the 4 pillars into society, culture, politics, and government. I honestly believe that you all have brought forward the best answer there is to so many of our challenges out there in Canada. And that's why I'm going to continue to show up every single month on the National Leadership Briefing. And I am going to work to advance the principles that undergird these 4 pillars into those realms, because I really genuinely believe you're onto something, and I'm here to help. So, okay, until next time, I hope you can take the post-briefing notes today. Remember, dig into the 4-pillar story. Really, really hold on to it as a lifeline. When the road gets bumpy ahead, I think it's going to be helpful. And stay connected to the National Leadership Briefing, because we sure love having your voice added to ours as we speak to these very important issues before us. Thank you so much for your time today. And until next time, God bless you, God bless your family, and may God continue to bless this great nation of Canada. Bye for now.